to be served, but I'm sure you all agree. Ever since morning, a lot of food for thought has been served here, isn't it? All agree? Well, let's continue. Today's theme is Learn, Unlearn, Relearn. But some things never change. First principles, the home truths, right? The known facts, they never change. So let me start with some of those. So, how do people learn? People learn, adults, at work, right? 10% in a classroom, and the rest is peer interactions, on the job, etc. Home truth. Is there a pathway from learn to earn? It is a pathway, right? So first you deliver knowledge, give knowledge, impart knowledge. After that, what is required? That person should retain that knowledge. And after that, what is required? That person should be able to apply that knowledge. And only after that, there is a business outcome. So what do? We focus our energy on providing knowledge. And of course, our metrics are all about attendance, completion, scores, etc. Will the scores that the assessments happen in that classroom correlate to 6 months down the road the business outcome? No. And that's one of the key aspects why one can never predict or one can never connect the efforts to what the business outcome is. There is a lot of gap in there. Huge gap, right? Now, as I mentioned, learn, unlearn, relearn. Steps happen when tech changes, and we are at the cusp of an AI tsunami. We are all here trying to understand what aspects is going to affect us. Okay? Similarly, 25 years back, when digitization happened, everyone probably in the same kind of forums earlier would be understanding, oh, when digitization happens, what kind of changes will it bring? Eventually the dust settles. And then you end up firming up those processes and methodologies, right? So now at the cusp of AI, we all have to be conscious that we are deeply rooted with solidly learned principles from that phase, from that era. And now it is time for us to actually shake ourselves, look at the first principles that don't change, and then check out what the possibilities are. So I will make all of us aware of another first principle, rather of human truth. Just like we all feel hungry, we all forget. So that's a big challenge. And again, a home truth, whatever gets fed into you in a classroom, and very rarely do people walk out without a perfect score. They do. But very rarely are they able to put all the knowledge into action and eventually turn that into a business outcome. Right? So let me show you how this works out in practice. You happen to have your first interaction, ILT, knowledge deteriorates. How do you ensure retention? Well, managers, etc., refreshers. So there's a refresher, a month and a half later. This is a very lucky organization to have that for a learner. You know, even though the training teams are working, the trainers are working 24/7, literally morning, afternoon, evening shifts, churning out webinars and doing training, the guys on the other end for whom they are supposed to work are far and few between the interventions. Okay? So as a result, what has happened? What has evaporated? So you do another session. Again, the same thing moves on. At the end of the day, most people spend their life on the floor, on the job, with poor knowledge. And there is a non-obvious truth here which I will reveal to you. What is that? As the knowledge decays, you will see that performance to knowledge is not linear. That relationship is not linear. I will show it to you with data later on. But for now, let me just give you a page mark, bookmark in your minds that you need to at least have 75% of the syllabus of whatever you need to know to do your job well, at least that much. Always trust. I'm talking about sales here. Okay? So, what do you do to drive retention up? Obvious, home truth. Just try and push this curve up by daily refreshers, engaging them every day. Now we've seen engaging people is a mammoth task. If you take a whip and lash, it won't work. So we try and soft glove it with gamification. But gamification takes people to a very different tangent. You know, you've got to focus the person on the task at hand and gamify learning about those aspects rather than very different, right? On the surface is very different. So, what do you do? we need to figure out, one more important point here. While we are refreshing people on a daily basis, that's the intention, one more first principle. If you send the same thing to 10,000 people for your entire cohort, it becomes spam to them. Look at our own selves. We get so many emails. If I am going on a holiday, only on that time, that moment, when that make my trip email comes to me, it is relevant to me. Otherwise, it's spam. Imagine the mindset of the learners, because there are so many of them, and each one has something that they remember and something else that they have forgotten or they need a refresh. They are all different. So the key aspect here to be able to send a refresher out is to granularly know what each person needs to be refreshed on, what they have forgotten or likely to forget. Home truth. Can this happen manually? If it would have to happen, it would have happened. It can't happen manually. Is there a way in which tech can help? The emerging tech can help now. And this is the way. But before that, we need to calibrate what each person does not know. So that's where our presentation is for today. We'll be able to show and prove when we are now over the last 3 years of operations using this metric that it can actually calibrate a person's knowledge gaps, and that metric is a very succinct, confident leading indicator of the person's business outcome. How do you do this? Simple, home truth. Okay? So you need to have a pulse. So there is an acronym to this, which actually underlines how we do it. It's the periodic user learning and scoring expression. That's pulse. Very simple. Okay? I know the HR community is inundated with many things that are called pulse. Here's one more for the AI era. But this one really has an acronym in terms of how we do it and what we do. So what do we do? Take a look. I mentioned the home truth that each person has forgotten something differently from that entire syllabus. So when you send an assessment, will you send the same question set to your 10,000 folks? Should not. But can you customize it to an individual? Cannot today because of tech limitations. But if you are able to send a unique set of questions, 5 questions, 3 questions on a daily basis, or 15 questions on a weekly basis, and the set of questions are determined based on what the response pattern of that individual is, not forever, not 10 days, not a week, not a month, not calendarizing, but a rolling period of 90 days. And this is a protocol. This is where it has come and fit, and that we know that there is a very strong correlation to this invention of this metric. So when we do that, we see, a little bit about how this works. This happens on a daily basis. So if there is a score that needs to make sense, it can't have tested you 6 months back for the output which is happening now. For you to be able to correlate your performance today, your ability to sell today, for example, the score should be able to predict what you know today. First principle. So if that is the case, then I am constantly firing questions to an individual based on the response pattern over the last 90 days. And depending on what they answer or they do not answer, this score can decay. People forget. So it has to reflect reality. Okay? And if it reflects reality, there is enough motivation for the person to uplift or the manager to get it up. Right? So when you have this visibility, things start moving. So what happens? The best is that this indicator is a measure of both diligence and knowledge. As learning professionals, we all want a learning culture. We all want people taking your exam and having 30 marks for option and not answering that will still be scored on 100. Same principle, first principle. No difference. Okay? I'm keeping on repeating these first principles because it's how you apply the technology to some things that never change, to be able to actually figure out and solve that business problem. So what we have seen is, I asked you to take that bookmark about the 75%. This is where I will show you how it works. So across quarters, this is a chart that puts across 0 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100 score, the pulse score of individuals. And the y-axis is what they sell, how much they sell. Obviously, this is index data, so you won't be able to figure out. It's not, but this is real data. Okay, across so many quarters. What you see here are these red circled blip ups. Till the point that the people have scored only till 70, it's marginal. But it shoots up suddenly when somebody is more than 75. And why is this? Again, first principle is natural. The more I know, the more confident I feel. The more confident I feel, the better I engage. The better I'm able to take people through the sales cycles. I'm focusing on sales here, but it can be applied in the health as well. I can take it to a culmination, a proper business outcome. This metric sticks. It absolutely tightly correlates to performance. Another approach. Okay? Folks, the dealerships that had low pulse score, their sales meandered, the pulse score going down, the dealerships that had over a period of time, 0 months, longitudinally studied. So you can clearly see that dealerships or the people in them over a period of time improve, and the guys who do well have a higher score. So with this ability now, we have, with a few of our customers, been able to institutionalize this as a key metric for them to incentivize their sales guys. Okay? Now the managers know exactly what to invest in and drive. The L&D teams there are tasked with the strategic objective now to keep my guys' sales ready. Suddenly, from an enablement function, it's become a business critical function in these areas, in these customers. Huge change, huge change, huge change. Just because you can drive visibility through that learn to earn chain and are able to actually predict that this is the metric, if I do well here, so keep this score up. So what do you see here? The area managers of these large distributed sales organizations that work through channel partners are also KPI to keep the people under them at a particular level up. You say, oh, so what? But you need to empower the guys on the field. In real time, what happens usually, traditionally, we fumble with reports. Traditionally. Okay? You have your score somewhere, then you are chasing somebody else, and then some people have left, and then you are trying to correlate. Everyone relates to these realities, right? But if you are able to give precise real time as it is happening. So if I have 25 people under me across 5 dealerships or wherever, or locations, or I have 250 people under me at a regional level, I know exactly that of them 73 are yet to do their weekly cruise. And I know exactly who's where. And when I'm visiting those locations, on my app, which is called the Manager Action Center, I'm able to drill down to that location and say, oh, Jawahar, you are weak in this area. Can you imagine suddenly the superpower to a trainer? And that conversation is very uplifting. See, suddenly what happens is when you provide this visibility and everyone knows that things are not hidden, they all anyway start getting visible. Okay? So this magic of work really starts working. Now the difference is, you would say that, okay, we need to reward people. Okay? Absolutely. But you also need to reprimand people, because you are expecting an output from them. Okay? When you have a metric that is tracing that path, and you know that this is a very high fidelity metric, you have that confidence to be able to also slap a person and say, do this. Today you don't have that. And so therefore, what do? Oh, soft club treatment, let's start making gamified, give them games. You need to do gamification. There are psychological factors involved there to do it. Let's see one flip side. Somebody would have completed a course and you've given him a certificate or a badge. Can you take away a certificate from someone? Gone, right? Oh, this guy is sitting on his comfort seat. Oh, I know this. Oh, but test him 3 months down the road. Does he know it that well? You will have your answer. But to a score that goes up and down in real time, it's a different story. You can obviously pinpoint and tell them, this is, you are down now. So, your performance changes quarter to quarter, day to day, competition comes, you yourself up and down. Right? This is reality. So, by first principle point of view, if things are mapped in a way in which we are able to drive, that's the best use of technology. So this is what AI is all about. And I've just shared what we do in terms of measuring, metric. But there is a huge thing to keep people engaged continuously, otherwise they will not answer your quizzes. And that's a very, very different paradigm. So we use learning design principles, social media principles, blend all of that, a very different content format, which by the way is called Streamz. And if you'd like to know more about it, do drop us. Me and my colleagues will be happy to take more of it, show more of it on our booths. Thank you. Yes, sorry. We had this signs up. So we have been very recently recognized for all these innovations that we've been doing across the world. Some very, very notable ones are most innovative companies. We figured in that list, Fast Companies list of the world. Brandon Hall gave us the gold last December for mobile sales productivity enablement tools and a few others as well. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we have any questions?
I think we can take the questions. We are not time.